Hey,
Hey, what's
bro.
going on, man?
How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Hey, first of all, always love talking to you. It's going to be really fun talking to you with a bunch of other people eavesdropping.
Yeah, that'll be great, man. Love it. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, man, it's great to talk to you today. I've got a ton of stuff that I'd love to talk to you about. Obviously, man, your friendship has meant just so much as Sarah and I have um, transitioned into our new role here at Adventure. But first, I wanted to ask this. Tell me how this last week has been. October 1st is the 1 year anniversary of, maybe the most significant event in Las Vegas in the last several decades.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks for asking, and I appreciate the thoughts and prayers of everyone. It was an emotional weekend for us. We sort of remembered this weekend the 58 people who lost their lives. Um, a few of our church members were some of those people. The one officer that was killed in that event was a part of our church family, and so we followed a video story of her life over the last year, and it's pretty powerful. She ended up getting baptized on what would have been his birthday in March with her daughter. Her son had a pretty transformative camp experience this summer. So,
Wow.
I was just texting with her, and as hard as this year's been, she's, and as broken as she's been, because they were truly like soulmates, best friends.
Yeah.
Um, she's like, the one thing I know more than anything is God is real,
Yeah.
and so He's been present for her in the midst of that. So we're just going through all the emotions, but getting through it.
Yeah. It's been amazing to see what God's done through the tragedy there over this last year. What's maybe the biggest thing you've learned about your church, your city, the people of Las Vegas? What have you kind of taken away the most from that this last year?
Yeah, it sort of felt like a lot of Las Vegas. Everybody's from somewhere else. Everybody comes in from somewhere else, and I'm not sure we had a lot of, I don't know, community, like you might
Mm,
describe it in a less transient city or
yeah.
environment. But I would say the last year, the entire city just come together in multiple ways in response to that October mass shooting. I remember when the flooding was going on in Texas, a little over a year ago, and I'm from Texas, and we were talking about things that we can help, ways that we could help. One of the things I remember saying is, Texans will take care of Texans because I know
Yeah.
them, right? That's just what they do. It's my whole
Yeah.
family. It's who we are. And I remember saying to my wife then, I'm like, man, if something like that happened in Las Vegas, some kind of a natural disaster, I kind of feel like we'd be on our own.
Wow.
And I think the city really surprised me and a lot of people over the last year because people stepped up and said, no, we're gonna take care of our own.
Wow. That's awesome. That's awesome to hear. Well, it's been really moving, just to watch it from a distance and to see what you guys have done and leading the way and helping people link arms instead of throw punches has been a really cool thing to watch out here. And man, also, hey, we were going to do this FaceTime a week or so ago, but you celebrated 15 years at Central, and you had some friends fly in and surprise you. How's this anniversary been with looking back on 15 years?
Oh, it's been amazing, man. It goes by so fast. It's the statements are true that you can accomplish more over a long time than you ever realize. That we kind of underestimate the long term impact and overestimate what the short term impact
Yeah,
uh, will be. And so I know 15 years isn't 30 or 40, but it's long enough to get that longer view and
yeah,
start to realize the benefits of it. So it's been
yeah,
great. It's been awesome. Our team has just about celebrated Lori and I to death. So we're ready to get back to work. Let's just get back to work.
yeah.
So,
It's funny when as we were kind of taking our first steps, and it was sort of like day one at Adventure. Um, we were at Adventure for the whole summer, but then we sort of had an official installation weekend, and it's sort of like everybody, you have kind of a reordination thing, and they pray for you, and the church celebrates you. It's just like, man, I just want to get to work. I love this, but I don't necessarily like being the center of attention this much. Let's get down to business. So I'm excited
yeah.
about that. What real quick? you have a book coming out, and I know you do not even care that I talk about this, but I wanted to ask you this because I know a lot of times when we're writing, when we're about to release something, as you are with your next book, Uncaged, there's usually kind of a reason why that message has been just sort of in our heart for so long. And I know you can't wait to kind of get that out and get it public. What was kind of the driving force of writing that book for you?
Yeah, I would say like there's a story that's kind of the metaphor of the book of Gary Richmond at the LA Zoo years ago came upon these red-tailed hawks that were all in cages, and they were in this defunct poaching case,
Hmm.
and so they probably would have died in their cages. And so, being a little bit of a rebel, he opened their cages and kind of accidentally left them open and left in hopes that they would fly away and be free. And he comes back, about an hour later and walks in, and they're all still sitting in their cages. And he charged the cages, he gets the birds out, he tells them to go fly, fulfill their purpose. And they all just kind of look back longingly at their cage. And eventually he herded them all back in their cages. And the metaphor, I think, for our lives can be very powerful. We settle for this kind of caged life instead of the freedom that God calls us to. And I really found freedom through the promises of God over the last few years of my life and leaning into, I feel like the thing about God is, honestly, we can only expect from God what he has promised us. Anything else is just wishful thinking, right? So I really began to dig into what has God promised us exactly. What does that look like in specific? And Uncaged, I share the 8 kind of big promises of God for me in my life and the way they've impacted my life and the way I think they can encourage others.
Wow, man, that's awesome. I can't wait. Can't wait to read it. You guys, when does it actually release? Next week?
October 10th.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, everybody, stop watching this and go pre-order your copy of the book. That's my shameless plug for that. Hey,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
here's what I wanted to ask you from kind of a selfish standpoint. So Sarah and I just transplanted, as you know. We're out here. We're getting going, and I know that the Wilhite family did that 15 years ago. You guys moved to Vegas and got started on your journey there. I think for me, the biggest thing I'm personally kind of wrestling with right now is how do you stay rooted when everything around you is changing? When your kids are in a new school, and for our boys, they're in different schools. We're now in a new church, and everything is different, right? Every piece of the routine is different. All the faces and names are different, and so really trying to kind of work through that process. What were some of the things that you and Lori did whenever you were making that move that kind of helped your family really find those roots?
Yeah, I think one thing is just understanding, and I know you know this, but just reminding yourself uh, how traumatic in a lot of ways a move is from a stress standpoint, especially over the first 12 months. It
Yeah,
relates in some comparables to losing a loved one.
yeah,
There's a lot of, there's just a more to it than you realize, I think, until you're in it, and you were in a community for a long time and really established and a lot of great friendships. And for us, we were in a similar kind of environment. And so we made when we made that move, it was that first year was a challenge. It was really hard, and just recognizing it's going to be your kids are going to have their own journey, their own emotions, and you just try to love and support one another and keep talking. The simple things Lori and I did that made a difference, I think, is we set a kind of a family date night, one night a week that we have kept for the last 15 years, really. And that was a time where we could come together as a family, get dinner together. We usually watch a movie, but just really talk about life, how things are. That was formative for us in that first year because, the kids, there's some hard thing, even though our daughter was really young, there's still some challenging things related to that. So,
yeah.
we're able to talk. And then over the years, I think that's been an important thing. And then just realizing that this is a season, first year is a season. And, I would just say withhold judgment. And then this is, I mean, from a family standpoint about a community, withhold judgment as much as practical for a couple years. If you can get 2 years in, before, because at that point you really sort of know where you're at and what you did.
Yeah.
And then you can kind of look around and go, okay, how are we doing now? And I think you, for us, we had turned a lot of corners by then.
Yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. I think probably that time together with our family um, was something I think maybe we took for granted until everything started changing, and then it became like this really precious uh, jewel that we did everything we could to protect over the last couple months. Is we've got to be together as a family, and I think for us. If I was giving anybody advice that was in a similar situation, maybe it was a major move or just a major change, maybe a career change, or the like you said, grief, the death of a family member, or the loss of a friendship. Really circling up with the people that are closest to you has meant a ton to us, and then I think too, just honestly, stuff like this, just staying connected to other people outside. You have to be real proactive about it, and I think that's huge.
Yeah, and it's it's good for everybody because, we're just a culture anymore where so many people are moving every year, no matter your profession, what you do, like everybody's transient, it feels like.
Yeah,
And so, yeah, it's a process to journey through, but there are great benefits too. And I would say on the benefit side, I'll just never forget, we were driving along one day, and Lori's just looking out the window. It's somewhere in that first year that we had moved to Las Vegas, which is not really the place you move to when you think contentment or joy from an outsider's point of view, right? When you live here, you kind of see things very differently. But we're
yeah,
driving along, and she's looking out the window, and she just says, I don't know where she goes, "This is my favorite place we've ever lived."
wow,
And I remember I about went off the road, I was like, what? So that was such a huge moment for me. And once we kind of turned some corners and began to build some friendships, Lori was super intentional about that in her world too. Not waiting for people to invite her in, but opening our home, and we just started inviting people in.
yeah. That's awesome. I think that maybe as much as anything is hard for people, especially those I know people in our church that are new to faith or new to the city, new to the church, feeling like somebody else is going to do this, right? Somebody else is going to invite us over. Somebody else is going to take the first step, but just going, you know what? I'm going to put Proverbs into action, and if I want friends, I've got to show myself friendly. I'm going to kind of get out and be the one that bridges those gaps. I saw somebody said the other day, talking about discipleship, said introverts need to get out of their comfort zone and make friendships, and extroverts need to read more books. And I thought that's great because my wife is an introvert, I'm an extrovert, and so I start books but don't finish them. She finishes them all the way to the last page. But I make friendships really easily, and it's a little bit harder for her maybe to jump out and be the one to initiate that. So I think that's huge for people. Um,
Yeah.
you told
Yeah.
me
That's
something.
great.
I think you said Vegas has like a 2 year average residency. People are moving really, really often in Vegas. Is that kind of the truth for your church?
Yeah, I would say that I think the last stats that I saw, if you live in Vegas 5 years or more, for the population basis that for the population base that's in Las Vegas for 5 years or more, it pretty much looks like every other city in America. But in that first 18 months to 2 years, it's the amount of transientness is exaggerated. People come to Vegas for a lot of different reasons. Sometimes they think the city's gonna fix all their stuff. I always say, like, the problem isn't where you go. The problem is you went there. So you brought all your stuff with you, just thinking a move would somehow make it better. And they find out pretty quickly that it rarely does, unless they deal with that stuff in themselves. So yeah, the first 18 months to 2 years, Vegas sees a higher than average rate of turnover of people. But the people who live here longer, which, it's over 2 million now in the Vegas community, it's a much bigger
Wow.
city than people realize. People who live here longer, are here. Well, many of them are here for life now.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, man, we're praying for you, and we love everything that God's doing in you. Can't wait to read your book, and I know Lori's got Leading Loving It coming up, so you guys got a busy season. So I appreciate you taking time to talk, man.
Thanks, Ethan, man. Cheering for you, excited for you, and all that God's doing through you and the church and the direction it's going. I know it's going to be awesome. So look forward to hearing about it.
That's awesome, man. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy.
All right, see ya.